So this is part 2 of a video that I started recording that'll come out a week later here. So if you missed the first half of this, look back to the video that came out a week before and you'll find it. This is part 2 because that video was going a little long and I don't like to go much over 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. So one of the biggest mind shifts that I had recently was realizing that I don't have to build everything perfectly before I take action. This was a really tough one, and it's still one that I struggle with because I want things to be released perfectly. I don't want to get negative feedback, and it sounds so obvious that we get to release that beta version of whatever it is before we get to the perfect version. We'll never get the perfect version out there if we don't have feedback from the market telling us what needs to be tweaked. We can only assume so much of what we think the audience wants. Russell Brunson even said this, I don't know about recently, but a while back. He said people will come to him and say, hey, which headline do you think is going to convert the best? And he'll tell them, I don't know. And this is a man who has possibly more experience with headlines, certainly more with online funnels than anybody I know on the planet. And he says, I don't know. And he genuinely means it, because he may have a couple ideas, but he says, until you put it in front of the audience and you get that feedback, even he doesn't know which one of his headlines or ads or whatever will convert better. He is constantly testing. And that's the point. We don't know what's going to work. So why try to put out a perfect anything? Put out the best you can. Yes, we always aim for excellence. It doesn't mean that we're doing things halfway and low quality. That's not what it means. It's that at some point we get to go and release something, even though it's not as perfect as it could be. And we get to see where the market takes us and where the people take us. What do the people want? That's one reason why I do these videos. I really want to hear back from you. What do you want to hear more of? I want to hear which videos fall flat. That's important to me. I want to hear which ones made the most impact, which comments made the most impact on the video, all of that. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to hear from you. I really do. So, and it sounds obvious, but most entrepreneurs don't really actually want to do this. They think that once I've finished with this finished product, then I'll promote it. Once it's perfect, then I'll run ads. Once I know enough, then I'll post some content. But perfectionism, that just hides our fear, and that's really just a form of procrastination. Because once something goes public, then it's out there and we start getting feedback, and feedback can be really uncomfortable, right? The market exposes our weak positionings quickly, and that's not always comfortable, right? It exposes unclear messaging quickly. It exposes our bad offers quickly, but that feedback is valuable. Helps us get better. Without feedback, we're going to stay trapped in theory, and theory feels safe, but it never really gets us to where we want to go. We don't get anywhere by theory. We only get there by practical, whatever it is, making something happen in real life. So I think this is one of the reasons that entrepreneurs get addicted to learning. It was for me. I would get so addicted of learning because it felt safer than actually doing anything or I would do a little bit and I would stop real quick because it would get scary. So learning feels productive without requiring exposure. So it feels like I'm progressing, but it's not really risking that rejection. And that's where that risk is where everything happens, right? Without risk, we can't get a reward. It's crucial. We got to be able to put out some risk, and we got to just be confident and know that even our best mentors, even our millionaires and billionaires out there, Russell will tell you this, Russell Brunson, there's a lot of things he's done that have absolutely flopped. But what he's done is he's never given up, and he's been he tweaks his message. He has what's called the perfect webinar, for example, but that only comes from doing something over and over and over, and then making adjustments based on feedback, not what his theory is, to get there, until he gets to the end where it converts so well that he could call it a perfect webinar or perfect whatever. But it didn't happen overnight. It came from lots of feedback, lots of imperfection, lots of risk, lots of people telling him they didn't like it or they didn't like him even. And he really I think he struggled with that. He's even mentioned that it's hard for anyone to take things personally, but we really have to develop a tougher skin than that, right? If we're going to be entrepreneurs. So I know this is true, that I've lived it for a long time. I stayed in preparation mode for decades, and preparation mode can be a permanent identity. Some of my mentors would call me out on this uh, in groups or one on one. You're almost ready. You're getting ready to get ready. That was something I heard a lot, and it's not a place I want to stay. So eventually I realized something uncomfortable, that action creates this clarity faster than thinking. And you cannot think your way into certainty. You have to move into certainty, right? Faith without actions is dead. Is a Whether you call that a philosophical saying or a spiritual quote, it's both, but it's so true either way. One real world action teaches more than theorizing ever will for weeks or months or years. Especially in business, this is true. So recently, I've noticed how small, little, tiny operational tweaks, not giant overhauls, will make huge shifts. For example, changing the wording to my call of action by literally just a couple words, following up faster, making an offer simpler, removing unnecessary choices, creating a clearer next step. Those small changes often will outperform massive redesigns because clarity converts. Confusion kills momentum, and that kills business. I think entrepreneurs often overestimate how much customers really care about complexity. They don't. Okay, customers want clarity. They want confidence. They really buy our confidence. They want simplicity. They want trust. They want to be able to trust us. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing these videos live. I'm doing well, this is scripted, but I'm not altering it with AI, and I'm certainly not using an AI bot to do it because my goal is to build trust with you. This is the authentic me. You get me. You're not getting an AI. That's it. A lot of business growth is simply just accomplished by removing friction. Another thing I've realized is that energy matters more than I used to think. Now, I've always known that energy matters, but I have more recently become a morning person. I never used to be. And that's a whole nother topic we can talk about. How do you become a morning person? Why is it important? It's Benjamin Franklin talked about it, or at least he was coined for saying it, that early to bed and early to rise makes a man wealthy and wise, or a woman for that matter. Whether he said it or was repeating it from somewhere he heard, I believe that's true. I've heard it said many times by successful people. Not everybody lives this, but I do. And I think physiologically, we're actually designed to be morning people. I'm going way off script here, but it actually reduces stress in the body on every level: emotional, physical, psychological, chemical, all kinds of ways. It lets the body repair better. And by reducing the stress, you'll reduce, like if you're in that neighborhood where you're starting to show what they call pre-diabetes, or now if you've got full-on diabetes and it's genetic, that's a different animal. But if you are in the pre-diabetes stage, and even if you have full diabetes, this is going to help you, potentially help you. And then, not a medical disclaimer. I think it'll just help psychologically. And I think any psychological stress we can reduce helps our body, because then we have more energy to deal with what our body needs to deal with. So all of that, I got way off subject, but I'm getting back to why energy matters. And it's not a fake hype. This is what I used to think was important. Fake it till you make it. Fake this high energy. Ironically, we're on the Lenny Morgan show, and my mentor said, I don't want the Lenny Morgan show. But what he was really referring to was this fake hype energy that I would tap into, thinking that I needed to be this different persona when I was performing. This performance type performance persona that wasn't really me. And it's not true. Real energy is what's important. The real you. We connect to real people. And I think with the AI growth, AI is great. It's a great tool. But I think the more it gets out there and is overused in a negative way, I think real energy and real connection is going to become more and more important and relevant. In fact, that was one of the things that my own AI told me is it cannot create real human connection. And it's so true, right? It can fake it, but people will know real quickly that's not a real person. And if they don't, once they see the real person or see that there's no real person that was behind that AI bot, then they feel very, very misled, and that costs everything in business. I used to, when I ran my insurance business, I never had one month I had the highest production, a couple months I had the highest production in the country or the state, but that was usually rare. I wasn't really known for that. I had the highest customer satisfaction and retention, hands down, of anybody in my industry across pretty much all of my insurance companies. And it was because I was authentic and I was honest with my clients. And I would say, I wish that what you are describing is true in the insurance world or with company XYZ, but it just doesn't happen this way. I know that the industry says it should be this way, and maybe even the law says this should happen, but in reality, this is what really happens in the real world. And they wouldn't always like the message, but they appreciated my honesty. And because of that, even when I had to deliver bad news to them, where their claim maybe wasn't paid or wasn't paid in the way that they wanted it to be, they knew that I wouldn't give them any BS and that I'd give them the truth. And because of that, they stuck with me longer than most people stick with their insurance agents. So I got to really just, for lack of a better word, I didn't have to work very hard. Once I got my book of business with my customers up, it was very easy to maintain because I was just honest with them. I would help them. I would respond to them. I'd never lie to them. If I didn't know the answer, I would say, I don't know. Let me find out and get back to you. I wouldn't make it up. I wouldn't make assumptions. I would not tell them something unless I knew absolutely positively true from more than a single source that what I was telling them was the gospel truth. That's a rule I used to live by before AI, and I think it's even more relevant now. If somebody, even if I would get information from the company, any company, from a worker at that company, I would not assume it is the absolute truth until I confirmed it with at least two other sources. So somebody would say, yes, in your case, that claim will be paid. I want to hear it from two other sources, whether that's two other online sources, two other people that work at the company, a company and a customer, a company rep and a customer, something. That was always my rule, at least three sources. Then I would know the truth. And 99.9% of the time that became true. The first person, it may have made sense. I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably the truth. And then the second person says, well, yeah, I think that's true. And then the third person might say, no, that is not true. That's not what happens. This is what happens. And they'd go through the story and be like, oh, yes, that rings true. So went way off tangent there, but we're getting into not being fake, being authentic, real energy. Okay. Not because otherwise for me, I get burned out when I try to use this fake energy. Right now I'm using my own authenticity. And I'm in the morning, which is the best time where I have the most energy. And so I'm going to be the most productive. I'm going to give the best content. And scattered, that's where I'm getting right now, scattered energy, right? No. Let me get back on track here. Scattered energy creates inconsistency. Desperate energy pushes people away. Calm confidence performs better. I think this is really true. I think calm confidence will outperform AI. I'm betting on that. I'm banking on that. I'm seeing this even in my own business right now. I've changed to a different industry and I'm just being my authentic self, and I'm already getting much further faster with the growth of my new company than if I was faking it till I made it. I think this is because people trust certainty, not this frantic movement. I'm right now in the entertainer and decoration space, particularly in balloons, not in advertisement, because unless you live in Denver, Colorado, you're not really my customer base. But in that industry, there's a lot of creative mindsets out there in other companies. And I think a lot of creativity leads to, I know this is true for me, can lead to this chaotic type energy. And I think that really confuses and sets people off. They need somebody who can help them focus, not somebody who's crazy creative. Yeah, there's a time and place for that, but we really trust that calm energy. Okay. Wow, my thing just goes on and on and on here. I'm going to wrap up here because, again, I'm at time. You can put that down for a minute. So this whole thing comes back to authenticity. How can you be authentic? If you struggle with this, let me know where your struggle is. What do you want to know more of? Maybe this subject means nothing to you. If something I said struck you or you want to go deeper, please let me know in the comments. Send me a private message. I have, like everybody, I have to sift through the spam and the catfish like everybody else. But I do want your messages. And let me know what's important to you. And we'll talk about that. All right. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a good day.